In a previous video, we wrote a function that calculated some statistical quantities of an array, or sorry, of a list, and returned a dictionary with some of the statistical quantities calculated. And we had defined the function and called the function in the same file. And now we'd like to consider sort of a separation of the definition of the function and the calling, the use of the function, and separate them into two files. So we want to talk today about modules. So I have now two files. So the first is the definition. So what I called my_stat_module.py. I have just a definition. No, there's no calling of this function, just a definition of the function in this file. So here's the def to define. I called the function stats, and it takes in star arguments. And it's creating, this is an empty dictionary that is going to hold various statistical quantities. I don't have many. There's an actual real sort of predefined, highly developed statistical module as part of Python. But this is just sort of a little bit of statistics, sort of as an example of a module. Anyway, so I'm defining a function called stats, takes in the star args, it's setting up an empty dictionary, just a little loop here to sum up all of the values and divide by the number of them. And that is giving us our mean, starting at 0 and going through a sum and taking the deviation, the difference between a point and that average we just calculated, and squaring. So that's the deviation. Then we're squaring that deviation. We're adding those all up. So we're summing the squares of the deviations. For certain reasons, we divide by n-1 instead of n. And then to sort of undo the squaring, we take the square root. So this is the standard deviation. And then that defines another key in our dictionary. And then we're turning the arguments into a list. So when they come in that star arguments, they're really a tuple, but we convert them into a list, and then we can sort the list. That's what's on 27. And then the first element then will be the minimum after we've sorted it. So that's our definition of the minimum here. And that was just enough stats. And so then we return this dictionary. Okay, but you see here, we started, there was a comment, there was the definition. Here we're returning from that function. There's no calling of the function here in this file. So that's going to be done over here in this other file, use_my_stat_module.py. And that here is the connecting the two files so that they are understood by one another. Import my_stat_module, and they are going to be sort of placed next to each other in my file system, so I don't have to work to find this other module because I've placed them next to each other. And then I'm sort of giving it a name, stat_mod. So I have some data now that I'm going to work with, and then I can use that name that I gave it. So stats was the function. I could have had more than one function, but I only had one function. But that was a function within this module, stat_mod, that we brought in and then named up here. And then I'm sending it the scores. So then the result is that dictionary, and I can print out the dictionary or print out some sort of component, some part of that dictionary, some key value pair. So then I can run this file. There's no sense in running that file. There's nothing to run. It's just a definition, but I can run this file, which then uses that file, imports that file. So it has all that definition knowledge in it by this statement 7, where it imports. So everything after line 7, it's understood what is meant by this stats function. And so there it is. We've calculated for that list of values we sent. We've calculated those 3 statistical quantities and put them in that dictionary, or we can pull out the one particular term in the dictionary. And here I'm formatting it to sort of 3 to have 3 decimal places. So that's what I wanted to show you, just the sort of separation of a definition from its use. It helps with reusing code, so I can have multiple Python programs that might use this definition. So it's a nice separation for different people to work on different things, or important for reuse so that many different files can use the same sort of definitions and so on.